first thing I would ask is, do you want to be outdoors or do you want to be in the outdoor industry? Because getting in the outdoor industry, I mean, they're mutually exclusive. The amount of people that were messaging me was very clear that, you know, they wanted us to just, you know what I mean, like not censor everything. The thing that's good to do is when you get back, draw a line on the floor, and everything on the right is what you didn't use. And everything on the left is what you did. And then you kind of figure out what you could maybe buy to combine some things. And then that'll usually drop 10, 15 pounds off pretty quickly.
People get unrealistic expectations from watching hunting TV and stuff like that. Like Aron and I, we're like the least freaking trophy hunter or trophy-minded type of guys who like to kill stuff.
Not to Donnie Vincent this, but be relentless in everything you do. Like, don't, you know, hike in a mile, crap out, go back to the truck with excuses or whatever else. Like, get in there and have a good time. If at the very least, it'll be a hiking trip with a bow in your hand and your left arm will be stronger. This is Aron Snyder.
This is Frank Peralta.
And thanks for tuning in
to Living Country in the City.
That'll
work.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey, y'all, welcome to episode 72 of Living Country in the City. This week's episode is brought to you in part by the Go Wild app. Guys, Go Wild app is the fastest growing app out there for outdoorsmen, hunters, anglers. There are thousands of people hopping on this app every day. I personally love it because it is a super active community that's centered around hunters and anglers and is actually friendly towards them. I mean, y'all know that a lot of social media platforms like Instagram have policies that are actually against hunting. So, you know, you could post up your trophy picture and your entire account could get canceled at their whim. That's one of the awesome things about Go Wild is not only are you joining a community that's friendly towards hunters and anglers and outdoorsmen, but you are supporting a company that gives back to the outdoor community. Now, as a crazy competitive person, one of my favorite parts about the app is their point system. You know, you can get points for logging all sorts of different stuff throughout the app, whether that's training for the hunt, listening to hunting podcasts, going out checking trail cams, scouting, whatever that happens to be. Log those hours and you accumulate points. Related to that is their trophy scoring system. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You know, everyone loves to talk about how it's not just about the inches and the antlers. Go Wild does a great job of taking all that into account. When you go in to log a trophy, you don't just log how many points it has, how many inches of antler, but you go in, you log whether or not it was on public or private land, whether you shot it with a rifle, a bow, or a muzzleloader, the distance, the weight of the animal, all kinds of information about the hunt and the conditions. And they have a proprietary algorithm that just takes all of that info into account and gives you a really holistic score for your entire hunt, not just a number that revolves around the size of a rack. So make sure y'all check out Go Wild app. You can find them at timetogowild.com or search for Go Wild, one word, on either the Android or iOS app stores. Make sure y'all go in, create an account, get to know the community, and familiarize yourself with the app. Start logging, getting those points. So I mentioned that y'all can get points for logging time listening to outdoor podcasts. Well, you'll want to keep an eye out because coming up soon, we will be doing a giveaway to win some Go Wild swag and some Living Country in the City swag by logging time and tagging me in it in the Go Wild app listening to Living Country in the City. So make sure you got your eyes open looking for that. Also, a big thank you to Sawyer Products for being a continual supporter of this podcast. I would really not be able to do what I'm doing without them. I just got back from an epic road trip. You know, I spent a lot of time going on hikes, and I have a bad habit of always underestimating the amount of water I need to take with me. Fortunately, I had my Sawyer Mini in my backpack. Super small, super light, super convenient. I always had that on hand. Those times I did run out of water, was able to pull up to a stream or a little body of water, fill that sucker up. It worked like a champ. If y'all are looking for those super simple but super necessary products in the backcountry like water filtration, insect repellent, and first aid, make sure y'all check them out at Sawyer.com. All right, so getting on to today's episode, I have a rather unique one for y'all. hide your kids, hide your wife. I have Aron Snyder and Frank Peralta on the podcast today. I stopped by the Kifaru headquarters in Colorado and gave those two guys a visit, and we got a chance to sit down and have quite the discussion. I'm going to warn y'all that this one will not have the bleeps. You just get to a certain point and you just kind of got to give up on the censoring. So if you got sensitive ears, you may want to skip this episode, but otherwise, hope you all enjoy it. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Living Country in the City. We're sitting here in my living room.
Like a liar.
Such lies and deceit already, 30 seconds in. I am hanging out here in, what city is this technically?
Wheatridge.
In Wheatridge, Colorado, with Aron Snyder and Frank the Tank Peralta, who I was just telling earlier I thought was a lawyer for the longest time.
I've heard that before.
It's a hard no.
Yeah.
Well, then I listened to you on the podcast. I'm like, that dude can't
This
be a lawyer.
motherfucker ain't no lawyer.
On that note, before we get going, is yours explicit or do we have to watch our language?
You don't have to watch your language, but I have it doesn't
Frank,
bother me
you
either
already
way.
effed that
Titty
up.
sprinkles.
Oh my god.
Cock nose. We watch South Park a little too much.
Oh.
Well, not maybe. We
It's
probably
just-
watch South Park Tourettes every morning just to start the day off right.
Oh, there you
Have
go.
you seen that?
The Tourette's episode?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that episode. I mean, I know I have. I've watched all of them, but
Yeah, we just watched the clip from the Tourette's where it just plays all the curse words.
So
It's like
I'll just-
two and a
I'll-
half minutes of curse words.
oh,
So
that's
he's
right.
like- he's
he
like-
admits weird secrets,
My
right?
cousin and I touched winter is a cold time of year. Yeah, it's bad. And he's like, I'm secretly in love with Patty Nelson. I've seen it too much, obviously. I've got to memorize. But
He started getting Tourette's.
yeah, so then so you were gonna have to edit all that out. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there you go. My mother listens to this podcast, so
Sorry, ma'am. I'm really a good person.
you
I have a big heart.
you might get a call from her. Is this
Well,
Aron?
Brian-
Is this Aron Snyder?
Brian Call's mom, I think, said, one, I was dumb because I cuss, and then two, they correct my spelling frequently, so it can't get any worse than that, right? So,
Oh, there you go. That's okay. My mother, whenever I have a woman on the podcast, my mother starts stalking her on Instagram and asking if she's single.
oh, son of a
good
biscuit.
Lord.
Yeah.
Of course, I do the same thing for Frank.
What?
Excuse me.
There's apps for that.
That app may or may not be turned on as I'm driving through various states.
Oh, swipe right or left. I don't know. I've never
You
gotten
swipe
on
right.
those.
You swipe right.
Swipe right, definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you
depending.
just have it like on auto swipe right and you just
Well, I turned it on because I'm like, you know what? Getting out of LA, I'm curious because it's like LA. It's just there's quite a variety on the dating apps, and it's
Probably get the gift that keeps on giving down there, right?
bet.
You gotta be
jeez.
careful.
well, that's if you can tolerate anyone that you ended up talking to down there. Is the
They're
problem.
probably all actors / unemployed.
I watched Bill Burr thing on him, and they were like, "Are you liberal or are you?" And he's like, "Well, I thought I was liberal, and I moved to California, and I learned the closer you get to the ocean, the better people think they are." It's like I guess water just makes you better than everyone.
It sounds about right. I don't know. You go on a date with anyone in LA, and they're guaranteed to always be looking over at your shoulder to see if anyone more important's walking in the door.
Really?
Oh,
I
guaranteed.
I'd be in trouble.
Either that, or you think you're meeting like some nice person from like the South or the Midwest or something, like someone that's like into hunting or all this stuff. And you walk up and they look at your boots and they're like, and you start talking about that stuff and they're like, oh, that's everything I've tried to leave behind.
Oh Lord.
What the?
Oh no, I got set up on a blind date. I'm like, okay, we got a Blake Shelton concert coming up. Sweet. We got tickets. Let's go. Let's do this thing. So I'm like, do I wear the cowboy hat or not? And she was there, and That's exactly what she said to me. She's like, well, that reminds me of everything I've tried to leave behind.
Oh, dang.
You're like, can I get that ticket back?
I'm like, wow, this is going to be a fun date. So we got 2 bottles of wine? What are we taking with us?
Yeah, no kidding. Frank wears a sombrero and he goes out.
Oh, God.
Hello, my name is Juan Valdez. Would you like some coffee?
Oh, I hate you.
So we're here to talk about pack mules with Frank. Packing coffee into the backcountry.
I know, right? I've been the pack mule a few times, but
Yeah, I've called Frank, like, can you please come help? It's like, what do you always say? What is that from Miss Doubtfire? Help is on the way, dear. That's what
Help is on the way, dearie. It was a run by fruiting.
or he'll answer, hello, Clarice.
I ate her liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Lord, I forgot about that movie.
that was a creepy movie.
Yeah, it was a creepy movie. I was young. Frank, you probably weren't even born yet. When that thing come out, you were like 5?
No. Probably like 10.
Definitely not old enough to be watching it.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's Google that. We Google a lot. Well, Silence of the Lambs, 1991.
91 is when that one came out?
So you were 5.
I was 3.
3. There you go. Probably like 10.
I was going to say, yeah, I think I was, 9?
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
Something like that.
I was going to say, because in 91, I was only 16 or whatever, something like that. So, yeah, it's pretty young. I remember watching it, like, with that guy. Well, the best thing is you watch it when you're a kid, and, he's in the hole or whatever. Then you watch Joe Dirt, fast forward 15 years. I got it. Where's my magazine? So you kind of add light to it, so you're scared crap. I can't say the SHIT word, so I was scared crapless as a kid. And then I watched Joe Dirt later on and make jokes about it.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. So where all have you been through? Coming. I saw you stopped in the homeland and on the way out, and where else?
Yeah, so I started originally. This trip was I was looking at, I told you guys earlier I spent a month out in the desert for work for festival season, and I was just like, I can't just go back to my little 450 square foot apartment and back to the office and just doing the same kind of crap every day. I'm like, I need to get out, just do something. And so I was like, I wanted to come see Kifaru and see you guys and talk to a few folks out here. And I was looking at plane tickets, and I was just looking where everyone's kind of spread out. And I'm like, well, I could fly into Denver, but I'm still going to want to rent a car. So I'm looking at car rental prices and plane ticket prices. I'm like, well, if I'm going to rent a car, I might as well just drive out, save a little money. I'm like, well, if I drive out, I can stop here. And then suddenly it goes from a quick weekend trip to Colorado to a 3-week cross-country road trip.
Yeah. So what do you do for work? Even though you're supposed to be interviewing us, I'm curious because we've talked before, but more just like whatever in passing. When we met on Utah or whatever. So
yeah. I am a web and mobile project manager. Right now, I work for a music promoter, so I manage all the websites and mobile apps for probably somewhere between 14 and 20 music festivals, depending on the year.
Father mucker, that sounds like busy.
It definitely keeps me busy. And one of the funny things is, all of the people that work for this company are, as passionate as all of us are about hunting, that's how they are about live music. And so when I would want to take vacation or time off, it's kind of a weird thing to them because when a lot of these people, when they take their vacations and time off, they go to other music festivals.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mostly manage projects. I work with outside design agencies for some of our bigger festivals. And then some of the smaller ones, I'll just sit down and do whole thing, soup to nuts, design and build myself. So
you said nuts. Frank, where were we on that one? Yeah. I totally missed that. You're
Edit
way
that out.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh, Lord.
That same beep that absolutely every podcast has.
What did Nate use that one time?
We don't use the beep.
He used some sort of voiceover. It was
pretty funny actually. Yeah, yeah. It's when I say funny. So, it's being on Gritty, right? Like that's, that's edited out or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the one and Brian and I never argued about it. It was his podcast and whatever. Right? He wanted it edited, and I didn't. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm getting all these emails of dude, let it rip, tater chip like this. You can't say butthole, right, or whatever, right? Like, because it was beeped out.
They edited out butthole sandwich or something.
Yeah,
or like the whole
sandwich.
story about the butthole.
I can't remember.
See,
but
I think I'm okay. Like, butthole is, I think, below my line.
What about brown eye?
Brown eye.
Frank, I'm opening the door here, and you're not entering it. What the hell?
Mine are too explicit.
Yeah, Frank's pretty. I mean, yeah, but
I was told that I have to get Frank to actually talk on this podcast and not to just agree with everything Aaron says.
I'm opening the door.
Who said that?
A name shall not be named.
Oh, that's not nice. I think but like the amount of people that were messaging me was very clear that, they wanted us to just, what I mean, like not censor everything. So what did we start? 6 months ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6 months ago. I think in the first month, I probably had 1,000 messages saying, please don't change. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then Rogan went off on the phone with me, dropping F-bombs like a comma of how he thought it was dumb to edit a podcast. I'm like, well, if Rogan agrees, we ain't beeping shit out, right? Like,
I mean, he's doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, he's got a couple million followers. So he, so whatever. Actually, I just talk. I'm trying to figure out how to sleep, right? Like I don't sleep. And so CBD oil has been brought to my attention. I've been like totally of course I say that, except steroids, anti-drug my entire life. Yeah, it's cocaine, Ricky. You don't want none of that. And so I've been like, total, never smoked a cigarette, never got stoned, nothing. But I need to start sleeping. And so I'm actually meeting a guy today or tomorrow who's a specialist with CBD oil for pain and sleeping. So of course, Rogan would be the master Jedi at anything to do with that. So I bugged him about it, see what he had to say. So we'll see if, because you don't get high from CBD oil, just whatever. So we'll
fast
see.
Forward like 2 weeks, and Aaron will be wearing one of those Rasta hats with the dreadlocks.
I'm moving to Boulder, man, and I don't want to work anymore.
Sweet Birkenstocks, bro.
Well, on my way
Chacos.
through Portland, a buddy of mine. Well, he's now a buddy of mine. He reached out through social media. He was like, "Hey, if you're coming through Portland, I'm a chef. Stop by. We'll have some ramen." I'm like, "Shit, free
some fucking ramen."
Yeah,
You just dropped an F-bomb. Come on,
shit.
man.
Just edit that.
beep. I think we're gonna need a fun sound for this podcast. We
Put
need a fun
explicit on
bleeping.
this one. Say Frank and Aaron explicit.
That'll get more listeners probably.
Oh, I guarantee it. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, when you're a kid, when you bought NWA, right, which the little white kid buying the rap music because your parents didn't want to listen to it, did you buy the one that said explicit or the edited one? You bought the explicit one.
Was this
right?
a family podcast?
Oh, it was it?
Well, my audience is a little different than your guys. I feel like you guys have more of an intense, experienced audience coming in trying to listen. I mean, I don't know. I could be full of crap, but
Yeah, I think we get pretty much. It's pretty broad, man. Like we get a lot of newcomers all the way to. I'll have guys that I never imagined in a million years would listen to a podcast, and they'll get a hold of me and be like, "Dude, that was, they're like, it's funny. I would have never thought." And then they start listening to them, and some listen for knowledge, and some listen because they have no idea. Like I may talk for 85% of the podcast. And then Frank, the 15% he does talk is so out there that they're laughing like, what did you say the one time? I said, Frank, you got any parting thoughts? He goes, remember, kids, you can only get syphilis once.
I remember that one.
And that's what you took away from that podcast, right?
Exactly. Nobody remembered anything I said. On that note, should we start this over and redo it with no editing, or are you going to be good to go with it?
Oh, we'll figure something out.
I feel horrible for when Katie had to edit mine. I remember the light popped on when we did a photo, like a photo layover podcast, like one photo over another.
Okay.
And she showed me the screen, right? And so, like, if this is the screen, and then there was like these little lines going up, all right, so that was photos. And then down here was and that was me cussing that she had to edit. And
He's
at that
scribbling
point,
on a piece of paper right
and
now.
at that point in time, I knew I should, and I love Katie to death, that I should probably tone it down a bit because I felt horrible she had to do that. And to the point, she told me she won't listen to ours because she knows that it cusses. Now, she said she listened to one, and it wasn't as bad as she had thought it would be. But even still, I'm not in denial of the fact that I could talk to 100 people, and probably 75 will cuss right along with me, and then that other 25 will be like, that guy is going to hell. So
I think it depends. Like when you first meet somebody, they're pretty polite, but then you start, and if you start cussing right off the bat, they're like, "What the? What is this? You guy's a piece of shit." No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, that or the ones that are like really polite to you, so you're polite back, and then you let one slip, and then next thing you know, they're dropping bombs on your moms, and you're like, "Oh, you're like me. Okay, good. We're gonna get along great. You like cookies too? We can be best friends." Yeah.
Well, I always try and think of like clever titles for the podcast episodes, and sadly, with me, that's the hardest thing to do.
You can just label this one Tourettes.
Yeah,
and
Kifaru and Tourettes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I was leaning something along those lines. Oh man, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I got ramen up in Portland, and I got CBD soda.
Oh yeah.
And I'd slept. I've been like sleeping in the back of my truck. I probably slept in a bed maybe 4 to 5 nights out of this whole trip. Mostly just been crashing in the back of a pickup with a tarp over me while it's raining.
Oh, that sucks.
It's not too bad. It's like a white noise machine. But
way to keep your glass half full.
wait, why's it got to be a white noise machine?
Yeah, exactly.
Frank has a point. See, you're the bad guy. Frank and I are normal. Get out of this podcast studio, you son of a bitch.
I mean, there is brown noise.
Yeah, that's just
I'm not really sure
I thought that's when you go to the bathroom.
No, that's the brown note.
On that note, our poor bathrooms here, man. Good Lord, it's 'cause we drink we drink kombucha and I take probiotics, krill oil, and then we got Mike
and Alex. Alex comes down here.
Oh, yeah, it's like
People
we're not going to
down here from the warehouse. We got 2 bathrooms right there.
to drop bombs in our bathroom.
Yeah, he'll catch him every once in a while. Alex, did you just take a shit in our bathroom?
You said the SHIT word.
I've just given
Come on,
up.
man.
I've given up.
We just started. Maybe we should post this on our podcast, and then you can. That's bad. You can't link it either.
Co-podcast it.
We'll co-cast it. Is that even a word? Co-cast.
I did enjoy your podcast with Ben O'Brien. That was another one with a lot of bombs dropped.
Did he? I didn't listen to it. Did he edit those out?
Oh no.
I think he said "let it rip" in the beginning.
Oh yeah, no, Hunting Collective. That's another. He talks about it in there all the time. He's like, no, we're good. It is what it is.
No, that was a good podcast. He and I'd never met, and I never talked to him before or anything. So it was kind of a, whatever.
He looks like that terrorist from what's that Navy SEAL movie? Good Lord.
We need to ask Cliff. Cliff, if you're listening.
That one, oh man, you know what I'm talking about. Act of Valor.
Oh, where they're actual SEALs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he does.
He does look like the terrorist. Bald head with a beard.
You know what it took to get here?
Yeah. I'm sure he's a great guy though.
No, he's cool. He seemed cool or whatever. We got to do a podcast soon called the Dark Side of the Industry, where we talk about you got with the Yeti, the NRA, the backcountry hunters and anglers, and then partnerships in industry that are broken for one other reason or another. The people that you get. We recently had a guy that bugged us for a pack for. We really didn't want to give him a pack, but sure enough, we give him a pack, and then we find out he's sending the same message to multiple other companies and was just taking the highest bidder, and then one of the companies said they'd give him a pack in money. But he didn't ever mention that, and whatever. And what we're doing on Kifaru Cast is different because we, as you've seen, we'll wear 4 camos at one time, right? we'll have a Nikon rangefinder, whatever, Zeiss binoculars, and a Swarovski spotting scope or Mavens or whatever. No one does that anymore. I mean, it's hard to do. Not to say what we're doing is right, but it also pisses people off. So we're going to talk about that a little bit on a podcast at some point.
I think it's going to be good, but I don't want us to come across negative, but it's more of more of us exposing the side that there's a side that the public sees of the outdoor industry, and then there's the side that when you're in the outdoor industry that you understand.
Well, and I told him when he started, you will hate everybody inside of 2 years. I was like, pretty much. And if you worked here, it'd be the same way. And not here, anywhere.
You know, though, just the little. I mean, I've dipped my. Best I can say is I'm dipping my toe into the industry. You know, I'm not full blown neck deep in it like you guys are, but shoot, man, you get your foot in there and you just get sucked right into all of the fucking shit.
Yeah,
he said fucking shit. Yeah.
That's a naughty language word.
I mean,
well, I think that there's been a ton of great people I've met. There's I've also seen the dark side or the shitty side of a lot of other people, and whether it be loyalty or lies or everything,
fabrications, omitting. You know, I mean, it's different, I guess, and I know I get painted by a lot of people as because I'm overly blunt or whatever, and I don't want to. I mean, I'm not in denial about any of that, but you think about, well, look at you. You got. I mean, I've stuck up for you 5 times now that I know of.
Yeah.
You have done nothing wrong. I mean, you've done nothing wrong in the industry, but you're new. You had the ambition to start a podcast. You had the ambition to go travel and meet people, and then our buddy, which I like Tanner, he doesn't care, whatever. He's an asshole, so he started making fun of you. And I like Tanner. He could be sitting here with us, and he wouldn't. I mean, he's a great guy, but you get wrapped in the middle of that, and then you'll have guys, let's say, have been in the industry a long time and didn't get on social media, and they hate it. But if I hate something, like I don't like olives.
You don't like olives?
I know, right? So they don't go. I don't put them in the refrigerator. How strange is that, right? Well, if you don't like social media, I mean, I know this is crazy. Don't get on it. I mean, if you don't like someone's page, don't get on their page. So that kind of stuff is weird to me, to where for me, I just won't get on. I don't block them. It's not a big deal. I just unfollow them, whatever. I mean, and that's how it is. Well, if you're getting on someone's page just to find out reasons to talk crap about them, that's a little weird for me. I just don't.
It's a huge
really
waste of energy.
Yeah, in time where, I try to stay as positive as I can and about everything. And that was one thing where, have you killed anything yet?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, my knees do my knees count?
But you are not faking the funk either. You're green as shit, and you say that. Or I said a naughty language word.
I always tell people, they'll give me, TSD. They'll post something like, "Oh, don't you hate it when a-holes on Instagram pretend like they know some whatever," and I'll get like 3 people tagging me in it, and and one I'm kind of like, sweet.
Yeah.
Somebody knows me well enough that they want to talk shit about me. I'm cool with that. But 2, then I'm like, I'll talk to him. I'll confront him. I'll be like, so here's the thing. Have you ever listened to my podcast? Like, no, why would we listen to that shit? Blah, 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 blah.
You said a SHIT word.
I've said it a couple times now. Bad influences. But I'll look at him. I'll be like, I've done one solo podcast my entire time doing, this is probably episode 72, somewhere around there. 72, 73. I've done one solo podcast my entire time. One, it was mostly just because I was running out of content at the time and had to post something. Yeah. But 2, the title of it was More Things Not to Do in the Backcountry, a recap of my desert muley hunt.
Yeah.
And it was literally me on the drive back from Arizona, my 5-hour drive back from Arizona. I put on the headset, and I just sat and talked about all of the things I know for a fact I did wrong.
Yeah.
And in hopes of, somebody will learn from that. And I got a lot of good feedback on that episode. And that's generally what I try and do with this podcast is I am kind of the idiot, but I'll play an even bigger idiot and take that abuse, because as guys, we don't always want to admit when we don't know something. We get chesty, and especially with something like hunting that's like manly, kind of shit.
There's a couple of people I can think of like that. Well, and I guess that's one of the reasons why, and I don't listen to podcasts very often. I've only listened to a couple of yours, but I've never known you to basically say, I know everything. You're the guy that's like, hey, here's my story of me getting into it or whatever. And so that's why well, like with TSD, I hopped on and I'm like, what are you picking on this guy for? Like, he didn't do anything wrong, and, or whatever. So,
well, so you came out with that episode and I saw, TSD. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this crap. Screw these guys. Da, 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 da. And, it's like you'll be listening on iTunes or whatever, and it'll just kind of go into the next podcast. I think I was listening to the podcast before it. I was like riding the metro and it hops into the next podcast. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll just, I was kind of half listening, and all of a sudden I heard, and this guy, Living Country, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, hold on, I got to rewind for a minute here. Catch up.
Yeah.
And I actually, I messaged them after that, and we've sort of, I think I messaged them. I'm like, all right, I listened to the podcast with Aron. I still think you guys are douchebags, but you seem like slightly cooler douchebags than I thought you were before.
They're both pretty cool.
They are very, very cool.
And since then, we've talked back and forth. We've kind of buried the hatchet, and they've sent me well wishes, and they'll still talk shit. But
yeah, that won't stop. And I wouldn't worry about that. But what was funny about that, Mountain Ops, Jordan, super pissed off from that podcast with TSD.
Really?
Like, at a level, he's running a different pack, right? I mean, basically said we're against him. And I remember, 6 times, maybe more, we said, hey, those guys are our friends. We stayed out of it.
I've stood up so many times for those guys, and they kind of just shit on us.
Yeah, I just, not all of them, obviously, but with that, like with Jordan, we don't talk. I mean, because of that podcast and something else, and
the supplement podcast.
The supplement podcast, yeah, and that's kind of a crappy part of the industry where, I was a big part of, or well, maybe I'm tooting my own horn too much. I feel that I was a big part of Mountain Ops in the beginning and everything else. I never ran all of their products, which everyone knew that. That's because I don't run a lot of different products. There's just certain things I take and certain things I don't. But those guys were friends of mine. Like, I felt like that. And so when I was surprised when we had TSD on, we're going to have everyone on. I mean, it doesn't, well, you've heard, like, we have people on that I don't even really like, but it's good to have a podcast with them because, there's knowledge for everyone, and yeah, it is what it is. And that was one thing where I was kind of surprised, where I'm like, really? From the TSD podcast? We said you guys were our friends, right? And again, I'm not going to, if I'm a good friend of yours, I'm not going to stop having TSD on because they're making fun of you. We'll just talk to them about them making fun of you. And then we'll have one with you where you're making fun of TSD, which I guess for us, Frank and I are so like freewheeling on that stuff. Nothing really.
Well, I think that's where that podcast is going to come into play. Just the loyalty and the friendships that are made and lost from quote unquote business or whatever, So
yeah, it does suck. It does. I've lost good friends from the industry, and one thing. You think about it. If you were getting a hold of me and said, "Hey, I want to get in the outdoor industry," the first thing I would ask is, "Do you want to be outdoors or do you want to be in the outdoor industry?" Because getting in the outdoor industry, they're not mutually, they're mutually exclusive. You're not going to, so for me, my goal in the beginning was just to live out in the woods as much as I could. This has allowed me to do that. But for most people trying to get into the industry, I'd say, why don't you become a forester if you like the outdoors?
My name's Forster.
Bottle of expectorant. Traded for him, honestly. It's like, all right, hey, you know what? Why don't you go to Mountain Hood Community College and get your fisheries biology degree, and go work at a fish hatchery and survey streams? Like, that's a good job where you can go work outside. Compared to, getting in the industry, you almost kind of hate it by the time once you're in it, or in a lot of ways.
It's a nice. I originally started this thing. It wasn't even going to be a hunting podcast. I started like a blog and everything, and it was literally just to document, because I had a lot of people that would come to me and say, "Hey, I saw you shooting a bow. Like, I didn't know you could do that in LA." Or I go line dancing. I go to country music nights. I go four-wheeling. I go shoot my guns. All this stuff, and yeah, they're looking at each other. I'm going to get some shit for the line
I don't dance at all. I saw him the other day. He was drunk as hell at his sister's wedding.
Dude, I was getting down. All of our friends were like...
He looked like Richie Valens.
They were trying to get me on the dance floor. I'm like, I don't dance. And then, like, 25 beers later, I was just down there breaking it down. They were all impressed and shit. They're like, you know how to dance? I'm like, nah. The beer helped a little.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I would say land dancing. You probably pull a lot of chicks from that.
It's I will not confirm nor deny.
You get more ass than a toilet seat. Edit.
So can you get syphilis more than once then, or like what's the deal with that?
Oh my gosh, my poor mother. My poor mother.
Sorry, ma'am. But a lot of people will laugh from this.
Oh gosh.
Should we take bets? I bet this will be the most downloaded podcast you've got.
Bringing joy. I will beg to differ. Corey Jacobson sends out one email, and it literally triples the amount of downloads I get.
That's interesting. He reminds me of Peyton Manning
one day.
with his longer neck. Cool guy, but he reminds me of Peyton Manning.
Did you do one with Corey?
I've done two. I did one that was kind of just general, like, improve your elk hunting ability.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about Elk 101, and then I did one at Hunt Expo I got both him and Jason Phelps on, and we stole Brian's couch.
Oh, yeah.
And we did basically a elk calling for complete idiots.
Yeah.
Like, from the extent of, like, okay, I have this thing.
Yeah, what do I do?
Does it rubber side up? Or
Yeah.
And so that one's actually been, I've got a lot of good feedback. I still got to edit the video from that and put it up because I did a video from that one too. But we barely even got into bugling. Like, we just really focused on
cow calling
and learning how to work the diaphragm call and stuff like that. And I got a lot of messages from people being like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to ask anyone about this stuff, but thank you so much for posting it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. No, for sure. And those guys we haven't had Phelps or Corey on. I don't know. Actually, I mean, I don't know. Corey's on enough other ones. Phelps, we get a lot. You know what I mean? We have a partnership with Phelps, so we're actually going mobile today. When I say mobile, whatever, we're gonna set up for Skype because we haven't had to do anything on Skype before.
Yeah.
They're all right in here. So, Corey, I like Corey. He's funny. We shot with him, and I mean, he took it well because I believe at one point in time I said something to the effect of, you better thank God you can call because you can't shoot for shit. And
I think it was when him and Donnie both hit that tree. There's like a gap chute in the. Have you been to the TAC, the TAC or whatever?
Yeah.
There's a chute between a little fork and a tree, and they both fucking shot the tree.
and then Corey goes, "You want to see concentration?
No, you want to see confidence?
Yeah.
He has like 2 arrows left. And he shoots again, and he fucking misses again. And we're like, oh, fuck, this is great.
Well, and I told, Corey, I was like, look, dude, we want to climb up a hill. Yeah, you want to do lift, you want to shoot, whatever. I'm like, but if we're going to have a calling competition, I'm going to have a knee injury. I'm not. Yeah. I already know you're going to beat me, right? I mean, you're one of the best callers in the world, if not the best. Like, I stay in my wheelhouse. Like, I'm not going to enter something I'm going to get crushed at. I already know. I mean, and the guy can call, extremely well. And Donnie's the same. I mean, who's better? Who knows between Donnie and Corey? I mean, they're both very good callers, and obviously Phelps and Charlie are amazing, as well. But
didn't somebody say like there was like a joke, like Talladega Nights when
shake and bake.
Yeah, he's like Donnie doesn't enter the same competitions as Corey does because
Donnie enters a different class, and I think that is a agreement those two had a long time ago where they would
talked
not.
About they won't call against each other.
They won't call
like
against
that
each other.
Part in Talladega Nights. He's like, can I win one time? He's like, well, but if you win, then how am I going to
win? Oh yeah, no, those guys are super cool. They were both. They were fun.
They're cool dudes.
They were fun, but we had Barklow with us as well, right? And what did I have? 14 arrows with me. I had a pile of them, and I think Barklow at one point was like, he's like, I'd heard you could shoot. He goes, but then you had that many arrows. I wasn't really certain, but then I was sending it from, we were at 180 in. I mean, we were launching arrows. I mean, if you want to shoot long distance, TAC is definitely the
it definitely cured me of my Black Eagle arrows, and then Isaac Ailman saw me sitting in the back of my car counting my broken, shattered Black Eagles. And he walks up, he's like, all right, let me hook you up with something. You just look too sad right now.
Like Eeyore.
I was just laughing. I think I was making an Instagram post of just literally all the shattered carbon that I'd collected over that. And,
oh yeah.
Oh man, not that my shooting's gotten any better since then. Or apparently my bow usage, as we discussed earlier.
You should tell that story. I'm going to go grab Copenhagen, and you should tell that story. Just because You noticed I really didn't make that much fun of you. If I could count, I'd probably say I've seen that happen 30, 40 times in the last, 25 years or whatever. I've seen guys do it indoor courses, and I've had, the other day I had my knock wasn't all the way snapped in. That was a breath away from a dry fire. So I will be right back. Go ahead, sirs.
Okay, I'm going to stop us right there, and we're going to take a quick moment to hear a word from one of my partners. All right, y'all, I'm not afraid to admit that I'm a huge geek when it comes to games, and well, let's face it, a lot of other things too. However, when it comes to nerdy card and board games, I really can't get enough. So when I found out there was a card game out there combining two of my passions, hunting and nerdy adventure games, I really had to pick it up. The game is called Gut Pile, and the goal is to build the ultimate Alaskan hunt. You do so by collecting several cards including animals such as grizzly bear and moose, hunting locations like Yonder Mountain and Nunya Creek, as well as weaponry, gear, and transportation. But make sure you've got tags or donuts handy because you never know when an Alaskan state trooper will drop in unannounced. It's a great game and a ton of fun for hunters who are inspired to share stories about their past hunts, as well as non-hunters who can be brought into discussions about hunting in a very non-threatening way. If you'd like to learn more, check out my podcast with the guys at Gut Pile Games by visiting livingcountryinthecity.com/22 and get $5 off your order from Gut Pile Games by visiting our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners.
Yeah, so I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last podcast or not, but I was out shooting at, is it Golden County Archers, I think?
Golden High Country Archers.
Golden High Country Archers. I don't know, it's for some reason I've been told this 9 times and the name cannot stick in my head.
Sleep deprivation.
It happens. I've been sleeping on average, I'd say about 4 hours a night in the bed of a pickup truck for 2 weeks now. I think I've gotten about 6 hours in an actual bed, maybe 3 or 4 nights out of these 2 weeks, and so we're out shooting, and I'm using that as a complete excuse. It has nothing to do with my complete idiocy, but. Yeah, so we're at the course, people are taking photos. I go draw back, and Brian Horton goes, "Sam, you don't have a damn arrow." And I'm like, "What?" And I kind of cock my head out to the side. I'm like, I'm at full draw. Cock my head out to the side. I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I don't." And I go to let down. It all happens in super slow motion. And that initial, after you're coming off the back wall, that initial little jerk off the back wall.
You said jerk off.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. So did it blow your string up?
Yeah. So I hit the release as I was letting down, and string exploded. And we thought the limbs and cams were good. Cams look okay. But as I was kind of resetting I was fiddling with the little dampener in between the limbs, I noticed there's just a teeny little shard of limb that was peeling off.
How that could have been happening before. Is this a Hoyt?
Yeah.
I would say, though, even though Hoyt doesn't like me, if you're going to dry fire a bow, it should be a Hoyt. They can take that's one thing, they can take a beating. So you'd probably be all right. I've actually split mine before and just took a razor knife and pulled that strand off and never had a problem. Yeah, but
I'm taking it into No Limits. Going to be chatting with Phil later today.
He's a good guy. Phil's our homie.
Mm-hmm. I love Phil. No homo. Did you see that look he gave me? What?
Well, it's funny because usually, if it's Phil and Luke and Frank and Santino and what's the other guy, the sanitation engineer? Juan, yeah. I'm like the milk spot in the bowl of ink, right? I'm the only white dude in the group, right? So I'm the minority there. So then I got to bob and weave. And yeah, those guys are super funny. But yeah, you'll like Phil. Well, you've met Phil before, haven't you?
Never met him.
Oh, yeah, he's super cool. Good dude.
But yeah, so exploded the bow. That was, I just didn't want to demonstrate my loft problems.
Was that early in the day then?
Oh, yeah, it was the fourth target. Third or fourth target.
Oh, that's funny. We shot that course earlier that day.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm following you guys on Instagram. Not stalking it or anything. I'm just a little bit obsessed with you guys.
It's Frank's haircut.
What?
It is.
I need a haircut.
He looks like Storm. Pull that thing off. Show him.
What the fuck? I have a bunch of gray hair.
You got the little salt and pepper there?
Yeah.
I'm starting to get the if my hair grows out longer. You guys watch Sopranos ever?
Not in a long time.
No.
But do you remember like Paulie, the dude with like the white stripes down the side?
Mm-mm.
No, but I can Google it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
If you
Is that
Google
what you
that,
got?
that's what if my hair grows out like long,
Yeah.
that's what I look like. I just
got
had
some-
2 white stripes down the side and then down in
You got some gray on your beard there, too.
Yeah.
I've been blessed. No gray for me, everyone.
As long as it's growing in, I'm just happy. That's all I care about.
Frank
It-
looks like Al-Qaeda is the problem. He grows his beard out.
Thanks. Is that
Not the
compliment?
stereotype, right? I mean, I'm
Durka
not
Durka,
sure.
Mohammed Jihad.
We got
Doesn't
a lot
Amy
of buddies.
call you Gray Bush? No, I'm just kidding.
Gray beard.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
You shall not pass. Oh, it's Frank Grayhand or something like that.
Oh, alter egos. Yes. No, as long as it's growing in, I don't care what color it grows in. It could grow in neon pink, and I would be fine.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
but-
good though.
my ex used to sit and like pluck the gray hairs out of my beard, and then one day she finally looked at me. and she's
One day
like,
she ghosted you.
Oh.
The wound is still fresh.
Too soon.
Oh.
Dang.
Moving on. This scintillating hunting content that people
Are
tune
you
in
crying?
for.
No.
Shut up.
It's not funny.
Oh god.
It's these onions in the Kifaru International podcast room.
What? So how big is you? So you said that your apartment's 450 square feet.
Somewhere in that range.
Just because I know it's ridiculously priced down there. What is that costing you?
I pay $1,000 a month for that.
That's about the same as here.
What was yours was 750?
What, my square foot?
Well, and keep in mind, I'm
Yeah.
also getting like a smoking deal. Literally, I get that deal because my landlords want nothing to do with us. And so if like my ceiling caves in, I just get to buy some drywall and fix it myself.
Oh, that makes things simpler though.
Our
Yeah.
wiring's like hundreds of years old. It's the old like super thick copper wiring with like the cloth covering that you're pretty sure you're going to kill yourself if you work
You gotta
on.
poo in a bucket and dump it out in the street.
Oh, that's just an LA thing in general.
Shitter's full. Yes.
No, my last apartment was $1,340 a
Yeah.
month for 750 square feet. Freaking
Yeah,
expensive.
I was almost 16, I guess, for a 2-bedroom. Yeah,
I was trying to buy a house for a while, and I just had to give up. Like, I was trying to buy, like, a little townhouse. I just needed something with a garage. That's all I wanted. Somewhere where I could set up, like, my reloading equipment, set up, like, fletching stuff. And,
What was it, like $3,000 or something for?
oh, jeez. Well, no, to buy. I'd been hit by a car, and so I had a little bit of extra money. And
Fuck, I'm gonna go get hit by a car tonight. I've been stealing monkeys since like I was like 7. Anyway, go ahead.
I was looking to buy a house, and there was nothing. I mean, I would have had to move a 3-hour drive from my office to be able to afford a house.
Not to bring
a
another
townhouse.
Californian to Colorado, but why don't you move? It seems like your job
Right now,
would
it's a
be,
work thing.
Yeah, so it's not
It's-
as transferable as it might sound.
Yeah, it's. I've tried for a long time.
Yeah.
My last gig, I was trying for a couple of years to get out, and just everything was falling through. It was like for weird reasons, you know, like the job they'd lose a client and the job would disappear, or this or that or the other, and so I came off. I think I was in Wyoming. I was interviewing for an ad agency in Wyoming, and I was like, I got it. I got this gig. It was the best interview I'd ever had. I nailed it. They took me. They like threw a barbecue for me afterwards. Like they took me out for drinks. I'm like, shoot, like I got this job. I get home, and I get a form rejection letter like a week later. And,
Good Lord.
And so I was in a pretty
What
piss-off
happened?
spot.
Did they say?
I don't know if I'm trying to think, like, did I get drunk and say something? I didn't even drink that enough to.
You said
like,
titty sprinkles.
That'll do it every time.
I don't know, but somehow I offended them greatly. But yeah, so I came off of that job interview and was super pissed off. And I had a coworker that was like, "Hey, well, Golden Voice is hiring. That's the company I'm at now." Her husband worked there, and I'm like, "Well, crap. I'll just do anything to get out of this gig that had no future for me. And if nothing else, I get to go to a bunch of country music festivals." So ended up at Golden Voice, and the rest has been history so far. But
You're liking it there, though? Of course,
It's a-
do they
you know what?
listen?
It's
Lie your
a-
ass off if they're
I
listening.
don't know. They may or may not. But honestly, it's a great job. It is awesome perks, and I work with really. anytime you work with passionate people, I feel like it makes it a lot better. Whatever they're passionate about, it just makes the work a lot better versus people that are just doing it to pull a paycheck and kind of they're miserable, so they're making you miserable.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And even a shitty job, if everybody's passionate about it, it seems to go by better. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and well, I think I told you guys, right? Like they don't understand like when I want to take vacation because they're super passionate about this, and so that's all they do is live music, and they go to more shows. And I'm like, okay, well, we just did 3 weekends of festivals. I need to go get away from music and get into the outdoors. And so they're all like, okay, I don't understand that.
They're like, are you going to take ecstasy and bring your boombox, or what's the deal?
Well, no, now every time I leave, though, they're like, okay, don't hurt your knees. I'm like, you guys suck.
Oh, that's funny. Speaking of hurting your knees, what do you got planned for this year?
This year's actually crazy. I got a lot going on. Family vacation in Hawaii coming up in July, and I told my folks, I'm like, well, so if I'm taking off vacation for this, you realize my idea of vacation is really, really different than yours. So if you guys can't get mad at me because I'm not going to be like snorkeling and lounging on the beach. And so we're staying in Lahaina, which is where the ferry to Lanai takes off. So I'm hoping I gotta figure that out and get some people on the podcast. But I'm hoping I can do some axis deer out in Lanai.
Oh yeah.
So that should be fun. If nothing else, I'll see some action. Then I've got Velvet Muleys in Arizona in August. I've got some good buddies over at Hunt 3A. They are just that's what they do is they're out there chasing javelina and muleys all day long out in the desert. And they recently got a really nice antelope tag out in Arizona too. But so I got that. I'm doing some sailfish and hog out in Florida come November.
Dang.
With Brett Cannon, really good guy. And then I think I'll be back to Idaho in September for elk. Cannot let that state beat me. So I'll be causing trouble out there. And then I drew an aoudad tag for New Mexico this year, for February next year.
That'll be cool.
So I'm super stoked on it. I've got just an army of people that every time somebody hears about it, they're like, I want to go. So I can literally, like when in the movie when the little kid gets lost or kidnapped and they send the people like through the forest, with flashlights and binoculars and stuff. That's what my aoudad hunt's going to look like. It's just 40 people combing
an
the
aoudad drive.
Exactly. I'll just stand on the other side of the ridge and have everyone walk.
Yeah, like the Romans.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be cool though. So as far as like the backpack hunt, because I didn't listen to anything of what you talked to. I saw your post that your knees were hurt. What would you do differently if you had to do it again? I mean, minus taking someone that's done it before. What would you do differently as a greenie?
So the biggest problem, there's two problems. One is my first hunt, and I tried cutting down my pack as much as possible. But I'm new, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm going by myself, too.
You pack too much shit?
So I packed too much shit.
Yeah. And
then as I'm going out, it was like in the 70s, the whole time, 60s, 70s in Idaho that whole week before. As I'm driving out, snowstorm blows in. Mm-hmm. And so I run into Sportsman's Warehouse. I kind of swap out my gear. I was super thankful for that sawtooth, by the way. That thing kept me. Yeah. That was the saving grace, having that stove and in the sawtooth. But snowstorm blows in, and so I was frantic, like trying to swap stuff out and pack stuff in, but I ended up just with more weight than I really needed, and I probably was going in with an 80-pound pack.
Good Lord, Gary.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I almost don't want to say it, but it's just one of those things. I made a stupid mistake, and I learned from it, but then also going in, let me
hear some of the things you brought. Because we're going to make fun of it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, absolutely. Well, so I brought the sawtooth, and I actually had a Seek Outside stove.
The titanium one?
Yeah, the little titanium medium box stove.
Yeah.
Had my MSR, at the time I had an MSR hand pump water filter.
Do that again.
Oh, yeah, there you go. We're getting Frank a little excited over here at the end of the table.
Hold on, let me tape that.
La la la.
If this podcast is a rockin', don't come a knockin'.
Oh Lord! How much clothing did you bring?
Not that much, to be honest.
So where was the weight coming from is what I'm digging into here. Because now keep in mind, I have these same conversations with people, and they do like you. They're like, I didn't bring that much. I didn't have that, whatever. I'm like, your pack weighed 80 pounds, buddy. Yeah. You had something in there. Like, what was it? Because really, the goal obviously is for the next time for it not to be very heavy. Yeah. Where would you have cut weight?
That's what I'm trying to remember everything I brought. Now, electronics were a problem. I probably brought a little too much on the electronics front. I had a little Goal Zero solar charger that I didn't end up using because the entire time was a giant overcast freaking snowstorm. But I had a couple of dark energy chargers. I had my 2 GoPros and everything. And because I'm like, this is my first hunt, I want to document this thing. I wasn't planning on going full film or anything, but I just wanted some footage of the hunt. That definitely added a lot of weight. I was pulling up. I have a list somewhere of everything that was in my pack. I use that lighter pack. It's like a website where you can put everything in and it shows you percentages and you can put stuff in different bags and pouches, and it's kind of a cool website. But I have it listed.
I've never heard of it.
No, we never. We talk about. I mean, when we do this frequently, so we're whatever. But like I've said it many podcasts, like I don't spreadsheet it up. If it's in there, it needs to be in there. And you get to a point like you've got your entire podcast studio in that bag. Mm-hmm. Most people that start one probably aren't going to be as dialed in as you because you've done it, right? You know what you need. Backpack hunting is no different. Like Frank, you usually pack the morning we go. Like Frank, like I pre-pack, right? And Amy gets into that or whatever. She likes it. But if it's in there, especially on a serious hunt, like it ain't coming out because it weighs. Like if it's got to be in there, it's got to be in there. So, but it's pretty Spartan for us. Like we don't really have. There ain't a whole lot of creature comforts in there. Copenhagen.
Yeah, I think after you do so many trips, you kind of remember what you need to take. And then we go on all these backpack trips, fishing trips and scouting trips and all that, and that kind of gets you closer to getting your gear dialed in. And then by the time hunting season comes up, you know what you need and you know what you don't need. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at. I was pulling this up just so I could see the weight of everything, and see where a lot of the weight was falling.
Oh no, those are good for guys getting going because you can see. Exactly what's in there. The thing that's good to do is when you get back, draw a line on the floor, and everything on the right is what you didn't use, and everything on the left is what you did, and then you kind of figure out what you could maybe buy to combine some things, and then that'll usually drop 10, 15 pounds off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I going out to Arizona after that, it was more of the Arizona hunt was more of a car hunt. Mm-hmm. So I even on top of that, I didn't pack as much, but I definitely was able to cut down a lot of gear that that I didn't need and didn't use the last time, and improved my food situation. There was a lot of weight. It's looking like was in my food, and I think I honestly packed way too much food. I could have cut that down a lot. I don't know what else. My tent and the sleep system, that was a lot of weight. I mean, a sawtooth for me by myself is a lot of tent. Mm-hmm. I don't need that much tent. I bought it initially because I'm like, okay, I can afford to buy one tent. I want a tent that'll work if I'm going out with a buddy, if I'm going out by myself, if I'm going out in the snow, if I'm going out in the summer. I want as versatile of a tent as I can. Then as the years go by, I can continue adding to my kit, and I can pick up a tarp, like a super tarp or something else like that. So the sawtooth was a lot of tent for that with the stove. I mean, I think a lot of it looks like just death by paper cuts, kind of just a lot of
little things,
little shit that I probably didn't need.
That's a horrible way to die.
That added up, and carrying all that in, and then climbing over. I had a buddy, he warned me. He's like, there's a lot of deadfall in that area. And he told me later, he's like, we talked about this on episode 38 of the podcast. We go through this whole thing. and talk about what happened. But he told me, he's like, I didn't want to talk you out of that area because he's like, if you found bulls back there, they were going to be big, just gnarly bulls. And I saw a lot of sign, but it was definitely a little bit older. I saw an elk leg.
Well, that's part of an elk.
Yeah, it's part of an elk. Wasn't attached to anything, and there was a...
Oh, never mind. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
Got my hopes up.
Was it like a wolf kill or something?
Yeah, there was actually some... I thought they were brown bear at first, but then just getting to learn the size of different prints, there's some wolf tracks actually not too far outside, and they were fresh from the night before because it had snowed. They were circling my tent a couple of times.
They like the sawtooth.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, I did not see any elk. I'm still not sure if I actually heard any. But the very first night it was raining. It was raining. I had the stove crackling, and then I just vaguely heard it would have been miles away. A bugle, and then one responded. So I'm pretty sure I saw my first elk actually about a week and a half ago. I just about crashed the car because I pulled over so fast and slammed on the brakes.
Drive by my house, they're all over.
Yeah, they were out this morning.
Yeah. Like I gotta hit them in the morning when I'm driving to work. I gotta pay attention. I can't text and drive anymore. What the hell, elk?
Well, I was going into Yellowstone. You go in. This was before Yellowstone, but when I was going into Yellowstone, it's like you go in that north entrance and they're just like lounging out there like cats in the sun. Like there's just hundreds of them, and so I'm like, okay, whatever, that's cool. I hadn't seen them, and I keep driving. And I see this one cow elk with a calf, and she's up on this like hill, and the clouds are behind her, and it's just this really cool shot, It's so I stopped and I took a couple photos. I look over and I see my bugle tube and my calls over there. I'm like, sure, why not? Let's play around.
Just let you know you're about to commit a crime over the podcast.
Oh, does that count as harassing wildlife?
Yes, it does.
Ooh.
Not to say I've never done it, but I've never done it. Anybody's listening.
Well,
if you had done it, tell the story of what would have happened.
I considered doing this whole thing, and if I'd considered it, or if I'd done it, this is how it would have happened. I just made a couple of cow calls, and she pops her head up, looks straight down in my direction. It was kind of a little roll to the hills, and just comes tearing towards the road. And I'm like, oh shit, what did I just do? So she comes into probably about 25 yards or something, and she's got her calf with her, and then sees the cars. I was like, oh, okay, it's just more idiot tourists. Yeah. And stops, and she and the calf start feeding, and I proceeded because of that to cause the world's biggest traffic jam because they're out at 25 yards, so everyone and their mother then stops in the road and starts taking photos.
I've noticed there's a lot of Asians that go to Yellowstone.
Yeah,
My
Banff and
trip
Jasper were the same way. On that note, I got to pee. Go ahead, fellas.
My first trip to Yellowstone, I was like 6 or 7 years old. I remember two things. One was waiting for Old Faithful and being irritated because I was tired and grumpy.
The worst, yeah.
And the second was my parents freaking out because there was an Asian tourist family, and we're sitting 100 yards back in the car watching. This family drives up in like their station wagon off the road, up next to the buffalo or the bison, to be honest.
Into the field?
Into the field. And proceeds to get out, and my mother's having an aneurysm right now. Because it's like a whole family. It's with children and everything. So they're getting out, and they're taking pictures next to them. And then the coup de grace comes. I swear my mother just about died. Because they're sitting there. This is before cell phones, and everything. And like, do we leave to call a park ranger, to get a park ranger, or what do we do? We feel like if they get attacked, somebody should be here to help them. Right. And the coup de grace comes when they take their toddler and put it up on the bison.
What?
To take a photo. I remember two things from Yellowstone, and that was it. They took their toddler, put it on the bison for the photo.
How is that even possible?
Tatanka.
Tatanka. But yeah, that was a trip to Yellowstone where I didn't commit wildlife harassment.
Hypothetically.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize just a call would be.
I only bring that up because I think we irritated the local Department of Wildlife because of a podcast we did. So if you're listening in, we love you. We love what you do, and we're very proud of you.
Well, I do feel kind of bad then because I was at the bison range, the National Bison Range up north of Missoula.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you have a bison call?
Were you going?
I did have a bison call.
Here, bison.
Well, I'm sitting there. I'm
Gotta
doing
shake
the
things
loop
up.
around, whatever, and there's they got like the different sections. There's like the bison over here, and there's the antelope range kind of over here, and I'm looking at these antelope, and I'm like, what is that out there? And I realize there's two dudes like 500 yards out off the road. You're not even supposed to get out of your car there.
Yeah.
And they're like 500 yards off the road into the field. I'm looking, and I kind of zoom in with the camera, and they're holding something in between them, and it looks like a Steadicam rig, and they're like chasing after these antelope. And so I got a picture of their license and a picture of them, and I got an email from the wildlife security officer or whatever, and he's like, thanks for reporting the wildlife harassment. It's currently being dealt with. It was super ominous email.
Oh, wow. Holy cow. Yeah.
By the way, were you calling elk in
Yeah. No kidding.
Ooh, hundreds of miles away.
Yeah. Technically it's harassing wildlife from what I understand, out of season. But I don't know. It's not like I've looked into it or whatever. I know I was telling a story several years ago, like you were telling me, around a Department of Wildlife agent, and then he told me I was committing a crime, and I really didn't look into it after that other than I remembered it as, oh, you're not supposed to do that, which I guess they look at it the same as like baiting a bear, right, or whatever.
I gotcha.
And they can, it'll potentially bring them, like, whatever, like in your case, might run out in the road and get hit by a car, or whatever. So
I could see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so since that was all hypothetical, and I did not
good.
do that, and I might have to edit an Instagram post.
It would be pretty chicken shit if they gave you a ticket over that. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard, once you come out west, especially from living in LA. Not that I've even been to, I think I drove through LA, I guess, but it's hard it gets inside you. It's hard not to, you see things that you just don't see in California, or at least not where you're at.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of funny because I've always been, going into the national forest. I always loved camping and all of this, and I grew up to some extent doing that, but it was more like summer vacation kind of thing, not something you do on a regular basis. And so I've always loved being in the outdoors, and I've seen bears, I've seen deer, I've seen lots of stuff. Obviously not an elk until recently, but I'm used to wildlife and this and that. And then I just was sitting. It was kind of funny. I was in Salt Lake the other day, and I was about to pass out, so I went and took a nap in a park, and I was just kind of watching the people like interacting with the ducks at the pond, like in the the cement pond in the middle of the park, and I'm like, that's the majority of the world. That's their idea of wildlife. That's what they view as wildlife, and that's the only experience they'll ever have with it. And it kind of made me super sad, to be completely honest. So Aaron's Aron is Instagramming or videotaping or something, and now I'm hearing myself talk. It's like when you get
It's like the Matrix or something.
Well, it's like when you get that feedback on the cell phone,
Mr.
like,
Anderson.
when you're talking,
Well, you're right though, but that also is why the Republic of Boulder and the jokes like that is you get to where you've humanized animals to such a high level that they know nothing else, right? They don't realize. In the case of like the other day with Amy, she didn't realize that a male boar eats its young so it can breed again, right? They don't realize things like that. They don't realize that when you take away certain hunting for predators, right, it hurts the ungulate population so bad that even though they think they may be doing good, that the end repercussions of their protest for whatever the case may be, meaning banning grizzly bear hunting, that crushes the moose population. Now, in their mind, they, in the end, it'll all work out, right? You just let it be. But, they're looking at it when there was no humans. There is humans now. And so, but when you humanize everything and that's all I mean, that's how it is.
I've talked about it before. It's the video that just gets me every friggin' time is, that video that gets passed around about reintroducing the wolves to Yellowstone? It's like there's music playing, and they're like, oh, and look, wolves restore the balance of nature and change rivers and blah, 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 blah. And it also irritates me because they keep referring to elk as deer, and I just want to
It's always almost the same thing. Same problem.
But it's one of those things where people don't realize, okay, yeah, especially if you reintroduce a non-native species of wolf that was not native to that area, and whatever possibly used to keep them in check, whether it was a land feature or some other animal, it's not present anymore, and now suddenly you got them spreading to Idaho and all these other states.
You don't release muskies in your trout pond. It just doesn't work out. Never does.
But, hey, it's nature, and I don't see any of these people giving up their houses and turning it back into wildlife habitat.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they think the balance of nature is going to be restored without people guiding it.
Well, yawning. Ooh, tired.
Man, I'm boring this much already, huh?
No, I don't sleep very much. If you look at the reintroduction of wolves, the problem is you have this initial, of course, this is from my pea brain, this initial onslaught of, like right now, Colorado, reintroduction of wolves. Well, if there was actually a plan that was where everyone was held accountable and numbers were managed and there was no holding back when this number of wolves would, when we hit the cap, that hunting would be implemented or trapping or whatever. DOW agents were involved. You know what? A lot more people on the hunting side probably would buy off on that, maybe more than they will now, because they've seen when that reintroduction happens, there's no plan of when they get out of hand. In the case, I read some bullshit the other day that it's actually proven that the reintroduction of wolves in Yellowstone was a good thing. I haven't seen that data, right? Like, all I've seen is that the cow or the elk and moose population is just depleted. Now, I'm sure you can spin it either way, towards hunting or not, away from hunting. But if they reintroduced wolves in Colorado, what's going to happen when the breeding pairs have reached that specific number that they wanted? How many years will it take after that to introduce hunting to wean that back down? Because once they're introduced, it's proven the antis usually went out, and it takes forever before a hunting season is introduced. Look at the black bear season in Colorado was taken away. We just had a kid get bit by a black bear. Too many black bears in Colorado. From what I've told, it's almost impossible to get spring bear back. So once things get going, and that it's coming down the hill, and it's not going to come back up the hill once it starts going down, and that's what really scares me on a lot of this stuff.
It's turning into Colorado.
Yeah, it definitely
is. Yeah, and that's no shit. Yeah, and the drivers. Not to say Colorado drivers are the best, but you know how you can tell when someone runs a stoplight in Colorado? They're the seventh one through. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, speaking of black bears, what's your opinion, Frank, on frontal shots on bears?
It works out pretty well. Send it, especially when you're told not to. Apparently,
I don't think you got the full sentence out.
I don't know. I didn't hear. I just heard a couple of words mumbled under the sound of a train horn, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was like, Landry, did you say something? Yeah, I said, wait for it to turn broadside. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, oh, man, yeah.
It worked out well, though. It was even an expandable broadhead, so.
There you go. Frontal shots work. Maybe not for everyone, though.
No, that's another seriously debatable. Not to get into this too much, but if... because there was a lot of heat and debate brought down on me because I said at one point in time some stuff about your first year shooting a traditional bow and, shooting a compound and effective distances. But, all right, think about a few things here. First, if you took the rangefinder away, totally, gun and bow, how much shit would get missed then? Like the population, it's hard enough to tip one over with technology, let alone take it away, right? So let's say take away a rangefinder. That would solve a lot of, that would certainly increase the population rather than decrease it, because to me, that was the game changer for technology, was the rangefinder. The lighted nocks and lighted pins, none of that stuff to me really makes a difference. The rangefinder is what did it. All right, so the next thing, leave a rangefinder, but you have to have a proficiency test. And if you don't pass that proficiency test, recorvor compound, you don't get to hunt. Now, I don't think that that's what should be done. I'm just saying, hypothetically, all right, generically, we go out and what's your maximum effective range right now?
I'd say on an elk 50.
Okay. Well, let's just say any ungulate.
Any ungulate, if I want to be super ethical, I'd say 30.
Okay. So you say 30. So let's say the average of a poll that was taken was between 30 and 60, okay? And keeping in mind that most people don't abide by their predetermined maximum effective range, especially if it's a 350-inch bull.
Yeah.
So you take a steel target and you put a hole, a one and done, because you have to take in the hypothetical algorithm of shitting your pants, right, and the adrenaline. So instead of hitting the kill, right, you're just going to simplify that and make it a softball, okay? And you have to shoot your cold bore group in that softball at your effective range, which for a compound, let's say, is 40, or a paper plate. And if you don't pass that test, you don't get to hunt. How many people would not be hunting right now? How many people grab their bow a week before season?
Yeah, we see it every year.
At
the archery range.
Can't hit the bail, right? And this is traditional and compound. I have no idea why I'm bringing this up, other than the fact that, when you talk about the total population numbers and controlling population and this huge argument back and forth of technology and everything else, I mean, it truly it gets extremely heated of who wounds more, right? Gun, bow, stick bow, or whatever. And I mean, really, I mean, it's not like in most states, not all, that the harvest ratios are changing. Now, this is in western states. I don't want to hear anything about Oklahoma, because I don't like crossbows. I'm just talking about normally. Technology hasn't really affected anything that I've seen in great depth. Has it changed 3% in 20 years? Maybe, but has the population increased by 30%? It really doesn't matter breaking all that down. Anyway, I'll stop talking.
No, I mean, I think you have a lot of people, too, that when you're shooting a rifle, you're kind of, to some extent, you're like, this shit's easy. I can hit it from a mile away. You get down to a bow. I feel like a lot of times you get a little more concerned with your effective range. You get down to a stick bow. And, I mean, there's arguments both ways, but I feel like to some extent you're going to focus a lot more on your effective range just because it's a lot less of a distance weapon, I guess. I don't even know how to phrase that correctly, but yeah, generally I think you're a lot more focused on that effective range and a lot less likely to take an unethical shot, but I guess that also just depends on the person behind it more than anything else. So,
I wouldn't argue that. Now, as far as big game animals, have you gotten close to killing one yet, or harvesting?
Not even remotely close. Well, big game animals, no. I went on a hog hunt in Texas 2 months ago, something like that, and that was a tough trip for me. Lost my first animal. We had a pig, and I watched the video from my GoPro later, and shot looked just about perfect, but the arrow had more guts than blood on it. So I don't know if I caught a shoulder and it reflected back or what happened. But it looked like a perfect broadside shot. And so we let it sit for a while, and we went and searched. We brought the dog out and everything. We spent good 4 hours searching. I mean, pretty much everywhere it could have gone, any which direction, and
nothing.
There was maybe 3 drops of blood, like about 10 yards behind it, and that was it. So we spent several hours searching, brought the dog out. The dog couldn't find a blessed thing, and that was a tough evening for me. And then the following evening, or no, not the following evening. It was the last evening I was there. I let one fly at a sow and hit her. It was a great blood trail. We followed it for 1.5 miles, 2 miles. I mean, we were out for...
That's some commitment right there.
I mean, it was like stupid. We were on hands and knees going through some super shady shit. and it was down to like one drop every. It started out, like big swaths of blood on rocks and whatever, and then it was down to like one drop every 25 yards, and it was pitch black. We're out there with spotlights, and we get to a point where we just can't find the next drop. So we marked it with an arrow, and as we're looking for that last drop, I turn around, and I got like my little backup headlamp on, and so it's kind of weak, and I just look in front of me, and it's all I see are just eyes glowing, probably about 10 or 12 sets of them. I just about shit my pants. I turn back to my friend. I'm like, Jess, I don't know if it's coyotes or what, but there's something. And it was on a ranch, and the owner of the property didn't tell us that they were
cattle.
They had someone running dogs on the property, because it was definitely not cattle. It was not anything, and they were intently looking at me. And they started advancing, and I'm like, I just about crap my pants when they're coming. I have like one arrow left, and these things are coming at. So finally, they get close enough. I see their dogs, and I'm like, just about had a heart attack. And we hear a side by side coming up around the corner, and a couple of guys bust through the brush, and that was a surprise for me. But thought I was gonna get eaten by a very small coyote mouse.
That's funny. Why I have a good vibes. This will be your year.
I'm hoping. I have a good feeling about this year. I've got a lot of. It's cool. One of the. We were talking about earlier. Why I started the podcast, and I wanted to reach out to other people, and it wasn't even supposed to be a hunting podcast. It was just generally to be like, this is how I do this stuff in the city, and where I go, and what I do, and the generosity of a lot of the people in the hunting industry is what turned it into a hunting podcast. The accessibility and people always willing to talk and share with someone new. And to some extent, it is I've said it before, this is a totally selfish pursuit. What other venue would I be able to like come out and be like, hey guys, let's like sit down and let me ask you pointed questions for the next hour. And because of this, I've developed some incredible relationships with some of the most legit hunters out there that I know. And I am super grateful because so many people have reached out, and they're like, I don't care, man. You got to come out, and we're getting you something this year. I think I've got more people out there that are determined to get me something than I am. Yeah,
that's good. That's a good position to be in, though.
I'm not going to complain. I think I told you guys, my Aoudad hunt. I've legit at least had 12 people that want to join me on that hunt and help me out. And they're like, we've got glass, we've got whatever you need. Da 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 da. We'll take you out. We got spots. We can help you with scouting beforehand, and it's been great, and just getting to know people. Like some of my closest friends have been developed over this last, year and a half that I've been doing this podcast. And I remember stuff like first meeting like you and Brian at it was that Sitka subalpine launch event that Black Ovis was doing,
mm-hmm.
and I was such a nerd.
You weren't that nerdy.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Maybe it was all in my head, but I remember walking up. I was like,
"Did he sign an autograph for you?"
No, I didn't. I wasn't that bad. I did get a picture with the two of them.
I remember you were sucking hind titty trying to hike up that hill.
Oh, I was dead. That was the worst thing. I remember I got to the top, and you and Brian look at me, and you're like, "So, California, how was that?" And I'm like, "That was the worst thing I have ever done in my life."
Oh yeah.
Well, because I had flown in, and I had like a 60-pound pack.
Yeah.
Because I'd flown in, I just packed everything in my pack.
That sounds horrible.
And I didn't want to pay for a hotel, so I just camped in Wasatch. That was a fun trip. That was like I was sitting in the office, and everyone was posting. Like you and Brian kind of posted about it, and Black Ovis had posted about it, and Corey had posted about it, and it's like, hey, we're doing this thing, and I was like, I want to get out for the weekend. Maybe I'll go camping or something. And I saw this. I'm like, oh well, maybe I'll go to Utah. Ha ha ha. And I looked at plane tickets. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to Utah.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. How much was it? Like 100 something for the ticket?
Oh, not even. Because I'll fly like Allegiant into Provo or Ogden and just take the train up, and it's like $70.
Yeah,
so it's like stupid cheap.
Yeah.
And so I flew in. I didn't want to pay for a hotel or anything, and I'm like, well, we're going to be going on a hike the next morning. I might as well just camp where we're going to start the hike. And I hadn't actually – I don't think I'd tried out the Sawtooth yet. So I took it up there and gave it a go, and woke up and it was completely covered in ice.
Yeah, it did get cold that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the first time using that stove too, and that was an experience.
Yeah, that's something you don't want to do the first time in the field.
Yeah.
Put that bad boy together in the front yard, people.
Oh, well, I'd put it together, so that part was easy. But figuring out how to not get my entire tent filled with smoke was a whole nother endeavor. I was just very. I've since learned.
Yeah.
Well, also the quality of the wood I was using was probably not.
Oh yeah, that'll do
the
it too.
best choices, but yeah, no, that hike. Well, it was also a lot more than we initially committed to, I believe.
I can't remember.
It was supposed to be like a 3-mile round trip hike. It ended up with like 500 feet elevation gain, because I remember Kendall was sitting there talking. He's like, we want to start kind of the hike to hunt thing, and we want to start it nice and easy and not scare people away. And then it ended up being like 5 miles and 1,500 feet. And,
that's funny.
It wasn't that bad.
I don't know. I'll go back in my.
No, I think it was actually. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's pretty steep in a couple spots. Oh, that's funny. Oh. All right, I got it. We're gonna have to cut this off. My phone will not stop going off. How long are you staying here for?
Well, I got to go into No Limits and have them look at my bow. But I'm around for at least till tomorrow. So
we'll link up with you. Well, I say that depends on how the day goes, especially after the sale we had this weekend. Our orders are insane. But link up with us, or we'll call you after you're done over at No Limits. They open pretty soon anyway, don't they?
I think they open at 9 or 10.
Yeah, so you're good.
So not too bad.
And then if we can get out of here or whatever, we'll go fling some arrows or something and link up or maybe for dinner.
Sounds good.
See how the day goes.
Well, one thing I just always like to end with is, somebody comes to you, like I said, directed at new hunters. Somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm from the city. I didn't grow up in hunting, or I'm new at this, and there's so much to learn, so much to do, but I really want to get into hunting." What advice would you guys give that person?
For me, it would be just go. Don't let fear, don't let anything hold you back. Just get out there, because at the very least, you're going to experience something you haven't before. And once you get out there, don't talk yourself off the mountain. Be relentless not that Donnie Vincent is, but be relentless in everything you do. Like, don't, hike in a mile, crap out, go back to the truck with excuses or whatever else. Like, get in there and have a good time. If at the very least, it'll be a hiking trip with a bow in your hand, and your left arm will be stronger. Like, there's nothing wrong.
It'll be as strong as your right hand.
Exactly. You're evening things out. See, Frank's glass is always half full.
Oh, good Lord.
But yeah, just get out there and have fun. Don't let fear get in the way. And it'll be a good experience no matter what, and everything else will fall into place after that. Frank, what kind of words of wisdom do you have?
I don't know. I think for me, when I first got into backpack hunting or backpacking, I did a ton of research online, but I think, like you're saying, getting into the field and setting a goal for yourself and doing whatever you can to accomplish that goal. Like, I really always wanted to kill a velvet mule deer. So I did a ton of research. I bought a bunch of books, but I don't think there's anything that can replace being out in wherever you're going to go scouting and do all the scouting trips and being out there in nature. So for me, I would be along the same lines. Is set a goal, get out there, and spend as much time as you can out in the wilderness and test your gear and find out what works and what doesn't work.
Yep, I concur.
And then make sure the left arm's as strong as the right.
Yeah, realistic goals are important. I don't know how many people get a hold of us that don't want to kill a cow, they want a bull, or don't whatever. I understand that totally, but if you got your heart set for your first bull to be a 300-inch bull, unless you pay for it, it's going to take you a while to get there. Probably.
There might be a few moments of heartbreak.
People get unrealistic expectations from watching hunting TV and stuff like that.
I love Will Primos, but it ain't like that. Yeah.
Like Aaron and I, we're like the least freaking trophy hunter or trophy-minded type of guys. We like to kill stuff. So
yeah, we just send it.
Just send it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for hopping on the podcast. I appreciate you letting me upgrade the gear for an episode here.
Well, we're sorry you're going to have to edit so much out.
I don't know. As I was going through this, I'm like, I think this might just have to be have the explicit warning on it. And
So that's what
And
I
we'll go
do.
from there.
Just put explicit
There you
on
go.
it, capital letters. And then when you post it, just say, we had Frank and Aron on here, so be prepared for that. Mom, don't listen.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, thanks again, guys, for hopping on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 72 of Living Country in the City. Make sure y'all head on over to livingcountryinthecity.com/72 to check out the show notes page and everything we talked about in today's episode. Now, I hope y'all are listening because I have to introduce y'all to a really awesome guy that I actually met through the Go Wild app. He is my newest supporter on Patreon, Mr. David the Ferg Ferguson. Y'all, if you have hopped onto the Go Wild app at all, I guarantee you have run into this guy. He is probably the most active person on this app. And while at times it's hard to understand what this wild Scotsman's got to say, he's a great guy and pretty much one of the first people to comment at any given time on one of my posts. So make sure y'all head on over to the Go Wild app and hunt down David, say hello. You can also find him on Instagram at Fergie, Fergy 1274. But in all reality, I'm pretty sure he only started an Instagram solely so he could point people back over to Go Wild. But David, thanks again for your support. You're an awesome guy, and I love getting to know you. If y'all are interested in joining the Living Country in the City team, make sure y'all head on over to my support page at livingcountryinthecity.com/support. You can see lots of ways to support the podcast and what I'm doing here at Living Country in the City. Some are quick and easy, like subscribing to my YouTube channel or leaving a rating and review for the podcast. Or if you feel like taking that extra step and supporting Living Country in the City financially, you can do that through my Patreon page. And with that comes some really great rewards. Go give that a quick look, livingcountryinthecity.com/support. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.
Just remember, kids, you can only get syphilis once. Sorry, ma'am. I'm really a good person. I have a big heart.